Could you tell us your name, please?
Wanda Cave.
Okay, and what year were you born? How old are you?
I was born January the 13th, 1930, and I was 81 years old the 13th of January.
Great. And are you from Portsmouth originally?
Born and raised here in Portsmouth, left and went to Columbus and stayed about 2 years. Went to cosmetology school there, and then worked a little while, but did not like Columbus, so I could return to Portsmouth.
Great. And so you grew up here and you moved to Columbus for a little while. And we asked you to come speak with us because you have some experiences with the flood. I know we talked about this a little the other day. Would you mind telling us something about your experiences with the flood in 37?
With the 37 flood. Well, I was a little girl, and I had just turned 7 years old that January, the same month of the flood. And we lived right there on Waller Street, kind of at the foot of the Waller Hill. And it rained a lot, and people kept talking about the flood and about the water was rising and one thing another. And of course, as a child of 7 years old, you don't take those things that serious. But then I noticed that what my mother and father were doing, getting all our things kind of situated where it would be easy to get out. And the people around Portsmouth were all kind of upset about the different things. But then it started getting closer, and people were really upset about it. Well, we found out that they were moving a lot of the people in Lincoln to Lincoln School for housing. And around the 21st day of January, my dad moved us out of the house. I can remember it because it was my mother had set up for a little birthday party for my oldest brother on the 21st. So we went to Lincoln School, and a lot of people were still trying to get their things moved out. And of course, with a lot of other children up there to play with, you don't pay that much attention. And we just had a real good time up there. And then they started talking about the water was going to really come in. And my dad told us that came up there, because he was still kind of down around our house, and he was helping other people to move out because he did have trucks, because he was a mechanic. And so we stayed around, and when he came up to Lincoln School, he told my mother that they were supposed to release all the water into town, and that we could come down to the bottom of Waller Hill, near the bottom, and watch the water coming in. And there was a big, like a manhole right there in the middle of 16th and, well, at the foot of Waller Hill on Waller Street. And when they released the water that morning, it came up, a lot of it came up through, and then we could really see, because it was getting kind of up in the streets anyway, but people were still able to get about down there. And when the water came in, and of course we as children, we thought that was something great, and because there was a lot of us down there looking. And so then later on, we went on back up to where we were staying, and we'd go and kind of peek down the hill at the water. And then before we went to before the water really came in, my dad and mom tried to get her baby sister, who was Bessie Tomlin, the lady that drowned. tried to get her to come with them up to Lincoln School, but her mother-in-law wanted her to stay with her, with the children, and so she stayed. And it was on the 25th, after the water had come in, and it was everywhere, all downtown, and just flooded. On the 25th, that evening, it was kind of toward evening, they came up and told my mother that her sister had drowned. And of course, you know, I had been having a good time, but when you see your mother crying or really sad, then you know that something's wrong and you're sad. So I cried with my mom, and of course it was a number of days before she was able to get down there to, you know, get real good information about it. But the water was up and it just really messed up. I can remember how we walked through the mud, and it really messed up everybody's homes. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather that lived next door to us, well, it was one house between us and my grandfather, his coal shed washed over by the underpass there at 16th Street. And what was so amazing, some of the coal was still in the shed, and you would wonder how a shed could move and still have some of the coal in it. But that flood was something that anybody that was in it would never forget it. And it was something that I hope and pray that I never have to go through again. Mm-hmm. When they began to talk about the water here, it brings back so many memories of how we would hear the older people talking about it and going down to the river to look to see how high it was. And of course at that time, you know, it was just a bad thing for all of us. And I can't remember exactly what year it was, but I'm thinking it was around 45, because I know I was in high school at the time. The water got up down in our area again because it was up to my mother and father's front porch. And I was in Portsmouth High School, and they dismissed us to go home, dismissed school. And we had to walk down the railroad track to get home because that was a little higher, because you know you go down the hill. And when we got to 15th Street, I had to go down into the water because I live right down the street from between 15th and 16th. But you never hear that much about that flood, that water. They didn't call it a flood, it was just water, high water. And I can remember a lot about the flood wall, but I just never got into the flood walls, you know, part of it. But I've always been really glad that they put that flood wall there, because it does give us a little more protection, you know, if the water would come up. And this past year, about 3-4 months ago, it was where I needed to go to the west side for a lady that I used to take care of in home care. She had passed away. And I'm real friendly with the family, but I'd had to go way around 104 or something to get over to Carey's Run, and I didn't get to go to her funeral. But the water still comes up in areas, but we're blessed. We're blessed. We do have time to get ourselves together and get out where we would be on higher ground to keep us from drowning.
Sure.
Yes.
So when you had to stay in Lincoln School, how long did you have to stay there during the flood?
How long did
you have to stay at the school?
I can't really remember how long we were in Lincoln School, but after a while they moved us from Lincoln School to Columbus.
Oh.
And they sent us there by train. And we went there and we stayed in churches. Anybody that wanted to go. And my father felt like it was best that our family go. And of course there was a lot of our friends around us, and they all went to Columbus. Mm-hmm. And we stayed in churches there, and the people were very nice to us. Everybody, they really treated us nice, and they helped us. Of course they'd have prayer and mm-hmm. different little church services for those that wanted to attend. But it was nice up in Columbus also.
Oh, good. How did your neighborhood change when you came back home? When you finally got to go back to your house and everything was back to normal? What was different?
Well, nothing really was that different because my dad was also a mechanic. He was a mechanic and also a carpenter. So he went in and I had 3 brothers, and he had taught all my brothers how to do any and everything. And they fixed up our house, and then everybody in the neighborhood began to help each other and fix up their houses, where they were presentable. Mm-hmm. And then most of the people moved back into their homes. And then shortly after that, I believe, is when they built the apartments over there. Mm-hmm. And of course, then there was a lot of people to come to the neighborhood. But our neighborhood didn't really change that much. I think it brought us closer together. Mm-hmm. The people there were closer because we knew then that we helped each other and we were there for each other. And of course, us as little children, there was a little work for us little ones, if it wasn't nothing but sweeping up, cleaning up in the yards and different things, and we enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. We enjoyed it. But it was an experience, and it was a sad one for us for quite a while. But and my cousin that's still living, she lives right over in the projects, and well, we're just the only 2 of us cousins now that's around here. We have other cousins, but they're not like first cousins.
Sure.
And we're close, and she's able now, we talk about it. We go up to the cemetery once in a while, because they put my mother and father had put a little, which all they could afford at that time, because this was kind of like during Depression and mm-hmm. around that time. And they put a little monument at her grave. And a number of years back, there was a man that was working down at Shawnee, and we got together and we talked a lot, and then after about a year or 2, they started and got this monument, mm-hmm. and it's a real nice one, and they put it at my aunt's grave.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's real nice. It's got her picture on it. I've had several people to ask me what was I doing with the monument with my picture on it this early. Because people used to say I looked like her. But it was real nice that there was a lot of donations from the people in Portsmouth, and I guess the different businesses here mm-hmm. donated money toward the monument also.
Well, that's nice.
So it's really a nice one.
Good.
So if you're ever up there, go
check
on that little main road that is the gate. The best way is the gate off of Kenny's Lane, and you come right down and you'll run right to it.
I'll have to do that.
It's nice.
Let me see. Let me check my notes here, see if there's anything else. I think that's good.
Well, I might didn't say everything that should have been said, but I talk all the time about the 37 flood because it was something that a lot of people don't get to experience. And I'm not glad that I experienced it, but I am glad, because every little thing that you go through, you should learn something from it. Because just the other day when they were talking about the water being high, I got to thinking about, now where would I go up on the hill? I started thinking about it already. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I did.
Already making a plan.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that I'd know that, because I'd be getting out. I'm not going to stay here and wait on them to say it's ready to come in. No. Because I don't swim. Of course, I guess if you did swim, the swiftness of that water, it wouldn't do you much good.
Sure.
It wouldn't do you much good. Well, that's about it.
All right. Thank you so much for talking to us.
And I thank you for asking me.
No problem.